Okay, so analysis video 2. Here we have Lewis Jackson. Now, Lewis Jackson, a friend of mine, featured a few times in my videos. He's got his own channel. I'll put the link in the description. He's a middleweight driver, and in this video, we're analysing a 59.208 lap. So I am going to pick out the bits which would have given him his first 58-second lap. I'm sure there's a few people who have been touching and playing with fire around the 58-second bracket. So we're going to break this down and we're going to see where little bits of time was lost, what was done well, and yeah, we'll go from the start-stop time. Right, so we can see that he brakes slightly later than Sam did in my previous video. But I just want to see how long he holds the brake down for here. I do say that the heavier you are, it's better to come in with the brakes softly and then accelerate out. But as a middleweight, I think you can get away with this more if you just hard slam the brakes. So let's just see how long his left foot is down for. Yeah, so it seems like his left foot was down for probably a bit longer than he wanted to. He might have thought that he needed to do that. I can't really say if that was right or wrong, just because I am not him. If he feel like he needed to brake for that long, then he probably did. But reluctantly, I would say the brake was held for slightly too long there. I'm going to watch it full out and see where he ends up. I mean, overall, it wasn't really a bad turn from Lewis. Like I said, there probably could have been use of less brakes, which would have gave him a better exit and accelerate faster through it. But I'm not one to completely say that was wrong or right, just because I don't really understand the weight class that I'm not in 100%. So it would be wrong for me to say that. Anyways, I can see that he was... How far away from the apex was he? So he was closer to the apex than Sam was. Obviously, he can still get a little bit closer. He might have done so in other laps, but this is the lap we are analysing and nothing else, as this was the fastest lap. So let's move to turn 2. Okay, turn 2 was done probably one of the better ways I've seen. Like, in terms of the turning point, similar to Sam actually, but because he's carrying more weight, I would say this the way he does this benefits him more. I always say if you're lighter, if you can get away with going a little bit further up here and then turning, but lifting heavily to get that really narrow left side exit through here. If you end up on, there's a little hole in the concrete, if you end up on the left hand side, you always get a real good exit into turn 3, which is what Lewis does exactly right. So yeah, he's hit that apex well, he's stayed, this is the crack, this is actually, there is a bit of the ground missing here, I believe. Yeah, there definitely is. If you can stay on this left side, that's done right. If you find yourself coming out wide over here, so if you come out over here because you've swooped through the apex and overextended, if you find yourself coming over here and then through here and then to turn, you're going to lose grip and you're going to lose your acceleration time. So I always teach people to stay left of this, like way before they get to it, because now you can literally put your foot all the way down and get full acceleration into turn 3. So just as I said, Lewis has done exactly that, and this is probably, this Tarmac section is probably what's made it the fastest lap of his session. There's not really much to say he's done wrong, really. I mean, he probably could have done turn 1 a tiny bit better, but I don't think it would have made much difference. Maybe 0.05 of a second or something. I know every corner counts. There is like 14 major corners in this track, so yeah. But like I said, he could have messed up on turn 2 if he did that one right. It's a really hard track to be consistent at. I do think I do rather well at being consistent around this track, mainly because it's such a long, track. It's like, what's the average lap time? Probably 62 seconds or something. Now that is a long time for a lap. So if you can do every corner perfectly in one lap, you've had a formidable lap, should we say. Let's move on to turn 4 anyways and see if he nails turn 4. Yeah, so he lifts very nicely. He lifts around about here, I believe, and also the tyre walls coming up to this stretch, he's done that pretty efficiently, I would say. But considering his weight class is just a tiny bit heavier, if this kart had like super strong grip, he probably could have got away with putting his throttle back down sooner, which would have given him a better exit speed. But I can't really say there's anything wrong with this, because this is exactly the way that I do it, and I'm pretty sure it's the way that Sam did it. So you can see how he lifted and he stayed really close to this right hand side of the tyre wall. This is perfect, because now you've got the challenge of slinging it to the left, and then you want to kind of come over this tyre wall to the left and then sling it right. And then I always say, if you can get halfway into the track going round there to underneath, then that's probably the better line to take if your kart's got more grip. So let's see how he does these 2 corners. Okay, so the first turn was pretty solid. Like, that is pretty much perfect. When it comes to this tyre wall, or this apex, I mean, you can see that there's a good bit of distance. Could have definitely been tighter around here. So if we're going to add up the first turn and this turn, there's probably now close to 0.1 of a second in this, which could have brought his lap time down to a 59.1 as it currently stands. Again, very similar to Sam. You can tell that I try and teach people the same way, because the laps are quite similar in comparison. The only difference is Sam is a lightweight and Lewis is a middleweight. The only thing that could have been done a little bit better here was turn left faster, because you can see how when I play this now, he ends up turning left, but then it's almost like the confidence of completely committing to the left turn like fades a little bit, so he leaks a little bit right, and he makes the track longer for himself than it probably needed to be. Yeah, so you see how far right he came. He might have done that because he feels more confident coming out and getting more track time here, so he can judge his lifting distance. A lot of people do that, I know. I've spoken to a few people who really struggle here. That's kind of the way that they make the markers. I've got my own markers, other people have their own markers. It's really hard to help someone when you're talking, little stains on the floor and stuff. I'm pretty sure I lift like around that stain in the floor, and then I will full throttle it as soon as I'm perpendicular to this apex, and then I can go up the ramp really smoothly. So let's see how he goes around this. Okay, so turn 1, turn 6 over here, and then this major turn here going up the ramp was all pretty similar in terms of gap away from the apexes. So, I mean, this is the video I was trying to talk to you about. If you was to get this far away from an apex, or that far away from the apex, like, that does add up over the track. So now we're probably around 0.14 down or something. So we're still not in the 58s, but there definitely was potential for this to be a 58 lap. It's just that you can't really be perfect everywhere, unfortunately. I wish that was the case in racing this track, but you just can't. Same with other tracks. Like, I am obviously Warrington based, so it's really easy for me to pick out things that have lost time. I'll just watch this in full speed again. You can see, I think he loses his back end quite a bit. Yeah. So he does lose more grip than he probably would have liked to with his back end, and then obviously that causes to go up this up ramp slower. So if you're going up this up ramp slower, it does get a tiny bit of front end lifting when he hits the top of the ramp, which means that he was carrying decent speed. But for the fraction of speed he lost, he's probably lost like a really small amount of time. But in total now, we could be losing 0.16 of a second, you know? So in all this now, we're still into the very low end of the 59-second lap. But there is going to be parts between here and there where we're going to really see the 58-second time lost. So we should say, I know this video is going to be valuable to Lewis because he'll take this in and he can work out what he can do better. Hitting every apex clinical is super important, but it all comes down to how much you trust your car with the grip. So yeah, hopefully, I've not seen this bit, hopefully he goes out wider here and he takes a really nice narrow line. This is quite a good corner, to be honest with you. If you nailed the start of the track, the tarmac section, and then underneath the concrete, if you can nail this bit too, that really gives me the confidence to push for my lap time to be the best possible. So hopefully it goes wide and then in narrow. Okay, so he didn't exactly do what I would have liked to have seen. So the issue here is he's kind of done like what Sam did. So if we start it. So look how narrow he is. He's definitely favouring this side of the track in comparison to this side. I would say it's better to be over this side because you can turn slower into this like apex, but then it also stops you from drifting over there to the left, which is what happens to Lewis. If you take my line here, you can go through here narrowly, and then you can just get full speed straight up the mini ramp. If you do this line where Lewis is at, he ends up going over here, turning back on himself, and then turning left. All that's doing is losing traction and time. Like, for example. Yeah, so you see how he had to turn right, like, more than what he would have liked to have done. I know he probably wouldn't have been happy with the way he took that corner, but that's just how the cookie crumbles, I'm afraid. In terms of this, like, this literally matches with what I said in Sam's analysis, like, in between this, like, I don't know, nailed down bit of wood, and then here's the middle bit. He's favouring more of the right-hand side. Sam might have been a little bit more to the left. It doesn't really matter, because you're going to sling it right anyways, and then hopefully power slide it left if you need to. This is funny. He's literally just done exactly what Sam did. He's hit the apex, and it's pushed him out wide to the right. If anyone sees my videos, I'm literally hugging this tyre wall all the way. So I'll literally be here right now, and I'll be just hugging it. So I'm about an inch away from this entire tyre wall. So yeah, I'd say a good 0.05 of a second has been lost through that into this. So now, if they was done more efficiently, this would have been a 58-second lap already, and we've still not hit the last bit of the track. So let's carry on. Again, this is kind of what's sounded. I would say he broke too early, because ideally you want to slam your brakes perpendicular to the apex, which is this line. You can see this line quite strongly. If he went a little bit later and slammed his brakes, let me have a look at his left foot when he comes into here. Does he hold his left foot down for longer than I do? Yeah, so he actually holds his left foot longer than I do, which is probably why he broke earlier. If he just hard slammed the brakes, he would have been perfect. So let's see how far over to the left he ends up, because he turned early. The earlier you turn here, the higher chance you will end up on the left-hand side of the next part of the track, and in the bumpy section, which you definitely don't want to end up in, especially if you're doing an endurance race, because it hurts your ribs and you end up retiring from the race. It's happened to me a few times accidentally. So let's see how far to the left he goes. I mean, it's not bad from the position he left himself out of the braking zone. I'd say that's probably the best he could have done from the early break. But again, if you can kind of have the front of your car, I'd say more here in the shiny part of the track, that's probably better. Just because now you've got to kind of come out a little bit right to turn left. But if you came out over here, you can take a really narrow line, and it does really make a difference. So let's just skip on to the last two turns. Right, okay. So the first turn was great. This second turn here is a good foot away from the apex. It would have been better here if he turned left quicker, and then he could have hugged the entire tyre wall all the way to the bottom, and then turned in at number 6 on the grid. But he actually ends up pushing out wide to the right. I'm not really sure why, but he does that, and that does cost him a little bit of time. Let's see how far over he goes, because I'm literally immediately hugging this tyre wall when I turn. Right, so yeah, he goes out wide, and then he definitely could have been more left there. I think his logic behind that move was, if he turned in, and missed it totally, he would have stayed more to the right, because if he came back over to the left, he'd have lost more time, which is fair. That would have happened, of course. But because that corner was kind of missed, it kind of added a tiny bit of track distance to his lap, resulting in a slower lap time than what was possible at the time. I believe now, if we add up all the errors, this is probably a 58, but this is probably a 58.9 lap, or maybe just a little bit more. So looking at the grid, you got 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. If I get that right, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8. So the number 6 is what you're looking for. So yeah, he does turn on the number 6. I think he turns. Does he turn late or early? I want to pause it here on this corner. Yeah, so he turns pretty well, to be honest. If he takes this now, then he's quite close. You can see how close the frame of his car is to this tyre wall. That's pretty much perfect. And then he's probably going to hit this one quite similar to this side, just in a reflective manner. And there you go. That is his lap. That's a 59.208. I can see that he flew past the finish line more than he would do if he was going for consistent lap times. If I press play, he's probably going to completely miss his apex because he's overextended. That's fair enough. He must have known this was a decent lap at the time. Yeah, so he kind of gave that lap everything he had, from what I'm understanding. Anyways, so from the point of this video, a low 59.2 second lap could have become a 58 second lap if just a few corners had a little bit of things brushed up on it, if that makes sense. There was how many corners was there? Turn 1, 6, up the up ramp, the next right turn. Yeah, so there's about 6 corners that lost time there. Granted, some of them didn't lose much time, and some of them did lose a lot of time. So after all this analysis, I'd probably say 0.3 seconds was lost, maybe even 0.4. Let's go 0.35 seconds was lost, which would have been a 58.85 if it was done to the expectations I would have had here. So overall, pretty good lap, solid. Hopefully comes in use to Lewis, as when he sees this video, he'll probably kick himself at the things that I've picked up on, because I know that from seeing a few of his other videos that he has done the corners that I've talked about better in those videos. Anyways, I'm going to move on to, I believe, Tom in the comment section on my last analysis video over Sam. He sent me a video, so I'll do his analysis next. But for now, this was Lewis Jackson, and I'll see you on the next video. And just if anyone wants to see the full lap without any stop and starting, here is the full lap, the 59.208.